Hey, good morning, BBA. This is Ron. Been a long time since I've done anything like a podcast or video, but this morning I thought it's the end of 2016, a brand new day. There's lots of things going on. I'm trying to get my act together again. Bikini's in a total mess. But I thought something that would be fun is gonna try something. I'm gonna have breakfast with Ron here this morning, and maybe we'll do a lunch and a dinner with Ron. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But there's all sorts of player option times. People are writing a bunch of stuff on the forum on their option situations, and I thought, well, let's take a look at everyone because that's how I roll. So I thought we'd have breakfast with Ron. I got my my Cheerios, Honey Nut Cheerios, and I'm gonna play a game called we'll play like we're Agent of the Stars, right? So I'm gonna go through and look at a bunch of options. There's like 90 some options across the league. Probably won't touch on all of them throughout the day, but I figured this morning I'm gonna touch on 11 or 12 of them. I don't know. These are the opt-outs. In other words, hold on. Lovely, right? These are the players who have the ability to opt out of a contract that's throughout many years, right? At least one more year past 2061. Pardon me. And like I said, there are 11 of them. And I thought what I'd do is I'd go through, look at every one of them, and then kind of say, if I were their agent, what would I be advising them to do? Is this a good idea to opt out or stay in or whatever? I don't know what the answers are right now, actually. I've just kind of begun poking through a little bit. But what I thought I'd do is I would arrange them by age. So we'll talk about the youngest ones first and work all the way through to the oldest ones. There's, like I said, 11 of them here. So the youngest is perhaps the most interesting one of all, and that is Phoenix's Masoud bin Salah al-Din. Number one in the scorebook, number one in your hearts, right? Al-Din is it bin Salah al-Din? I don't know the Middle East names particularly well. I assume it's bin Salah al-Din. Is 23 years old and coming to a opt-out. Has a very interesting background, came out of the GBC and was signed, 2 years ago, to a 6-year contract. Very unusual for a young player like that to be eligible for a 6-year contract. But since he came through the GBC so young, apparently that worked out. Bin Salah al-Din is a superstar kind of a player right now. Huge power, can run not much, but he can play defense at third base or in the outfield. And at the end of the day, he was up in Phoenix for only 108 at-bats and made one WAR already. So, I mean, fundamentally, he's like a 5 or 6 WAR player. Of interest is that contract, let's see, he made $4.5 million this year, playing, I assume, mostly at Liberty, with the Liberty at Toledo. He is scheduled to make 8.5, then 9.5, then 9.5, then 10.5, and then go into his arbitration at 8.5 and 9.5. I think this is a gentleman who will be making $15 million out on the open market without almost any question. He's 23 years old. I think that if I were his agent, I would be sitting down and talking about the fleet of Lamborghinis that I needed, maybe a yacht in the Mediterranean, and I would opt out of this contract in a heartbeat and take my 15 and 17 and $20 million a year. I have no idea whether OOTP is going to be smart enough to do that. I would actually bet that they will not. But that would be my take on Masoud bin Salah al-Din and his opt-out. The next player on the list jumped 6 more years. So bin Salah al-Din is 23. Twin Cities Luis González is 29, one of the premier relief pitchers in the league. I'll talk here. Twin Cities has a bunch of these guys. We're going to talk about 5 more coming up pretty soon. So the idea of using opt-outs is something that Alan Ehlers in Twin Cities is quite comfortable with. Gonzalez made $6.5 million this year. He's got technically 4 years left on his contract. The next 2 of them are guaranteed, and then 2 team options following up. The 2 guaranteed years, actually all 4 of them, are $6.5 million a pop. So if he opts out right now, he's opting out of $13 million guaranteed for 2 years, and then 2 team options at $6.5 each. Like I say, Gonzalez is one of the premier relief pitchers in the league. Pitched 186 innings last year in relief, made 2.5 WAR. Probably worth a little bit more than that before it's all said and done, would be my guess. At the end of the day, the fundamental question at 29, I don't know whether he's what is his injury history? No, he has almost no injury history. Seems to be either a truly durable guy or at least a operationally durable guy. This one's kind of a toss-up to me. If I were Luis Gonzalez's agent, the main thing I would be talking about is, do you feel like you can increase your amount of guaranteed dollars? Because those 2 team options at the end, make it that you're kind of betting on yourself as far as that goes. The other question is, could he be better off starting someplace? I believe obviously I'm a stopper kind of a guy. I think his biggest value to the team is probably as a stopper. But he does have a 10 stamina. He's got 4 nice, 3 really nice pitches and another sidecar that work, changeup that works. He could probably make more money inside the OOTP structure and the way people bid on folks to go as a starting pitcher. I would lean towards saying he should really opt out. He could probably make more money there, but Twin Cities is a nice place to play. They're winning, although we'll see what happens with a massive amount of turnover. Alan is always very good at figuring out ways to win. Like I said, a gentle lean to tell him to opt out, because I think he'd get better at 29 years old. I think he'd get a better deal with more guaranteed money. But if he chose not to opt out, that would not be horribly surprising or a bad idea. It's hard to turn down $13 million. He'd be back into free agency at 31, which is a pretty good time to be a free agent. Well, no, he wouldn't, because if he's worth it, he'd got the 2 team options. So, and if he's not worth it, then he'd be back in free agency at a time when he's not worth it. I would lean toward telling him to go ahead and test the market if I were a human-to-human conversation on that. So let's talk about Charlotte's Tulon Korutürk. Is that how you? That's how I pronounce it. I don't think that's Korutürk. Anyway, he's a right-handed starting pitcher. Right-handed relief pitcher. Oh, there you go. 68 innings that he threw in Charlotte last year. A quite solid 3.67 ERA at age 31. Let's see, where's he been? Where is it? Yeah, he's been a solid 2.5 to 3 FIP throughout a lot of his career. You know, mid 3s, low mid 2s. I mean, he's a solid pitcher before it's all said and done. Let's see, he is 31. He made $4.8 million this year. Can opt into $4.8 million next year. But then again, just like Gonzalez's case, he's got 2 team options at, again, $4.8 million per that he's given Charlotte in his contract negotiations. Those 2 team options suggest to me that opting out would probably be in his best favor, because he's probably going to get more than $4.8 million in guaranteed money. You know, at 4.8, if he isn't worth it and he's cut loose by Charlotte in 2062, you know, again, if I were his agent, I would tell him to opt out. These opt-outs often are structured by us OOTP GMs to be quite beneficial to us as OOTP GMs, and and as you're seeing here, in each of the 3 so far, I've said better opt out because that's just kind of how it goes here. This is Breakfast with Ron, so the 4th case is a little different though, and that is Hector Cano Jr. Hector Cano Jr. is 33 years old, center fielder in San Antonio. Made $14.3 million this year. That's a pretty nice, hefty sum. He's due to opt into 14.3, 14.3, 7.5, 7.5, and then a $7 million player option as the 5th year. So at the end of the day, Hector Cano Jr. has the ability to opt into, what does that work out to, about $50 million, $49.5 million? I don't know, doing the math real quick. Hector Cano Hector Cano is still a absolutely fantastic defensive center fielder. He hit 206 last year. His OBP was 263. He slugged 343, and that's in 204 at-bats. Was he hurt or was he demoted? Let's see. 2060. He didn't play in the minors at all. Was he hurt? Yeah, he had a few injuries. He had a fractured finger. Oh my goodness, okay, he signed a 3-year extension with Des Moines in the middle of the year and then was traded. That's quite interesting. If you are Hector Cano Jr.'s agent at this stage and you have a client who hit 206 this year with a sub-replacement WAR, would you suggest that he opt out of taking $50 million over the next 5 years? I mean, would you take the risk of losing your 15% of $15 million over the next 5 years to suggest that Hector Cano opt out? I think not. I think Hector Cano Jr. opts into this, goes straight to the bank and makes sure the money cashes. And I think San Antonio sits there and says, well, obviously he can play center field. That's great, but please, please, please let him hit. Otherwise, they're going to struggle with him for a bit. So yes, Hector Cano to me is definitely a opt-in decision if I'm his agent. Which brings us to 34-year-olds. We have 4 of them. The only one that is not Twin Cities is Robert Wilson, starting pitcher in Rocky Mountain. Let's see, Robert Wilson made $9.6 million this year. He can opt into a 3-year flow where he gets 8.6 and then 2 player options for 8.6 and 7. So is that 24 and 7, 31, $32.5 million, close. Don't know if there are bonuses and things like that on this, but Robert Wilson gets the option at age 34 to opt into about 30-something million dollars. He is still a solid pitcher, despite, I mean, he had a bit of an ugly ERA this year, but a lot of pitchers at Rocky Mountain have ugly ERAs. He did 1.5 WAR. Where's his FIP? His FIP was league average, 102, FIP minus. And in Omaha, it's been quite similar. I mean, he's a solid work-a-day starting pitcher. I don't think he's going to get a whole lot more than if he were to go to free agency at age 34 right now. I don't think he'd get essentially $8.5 million a year. Maybe for 3 years. I just don't see it. I think I would say stay right there at Rocky Mountain, take your lumps in that little park, and see what happens. He'd be back to free agency at 37. Some pitchers are still fine at 37, so maybe he could tack on another year or 3 at the end of that. But I think the answer is you take your money and you run and you stay with it. The next, actually 5 candidates here are all Twin Cities, and so we'll talk about Twin Cities for just a little bit. Alan, obviously, like I said, uses this strategy quite often, and all of these guys have at least 3 more years on their contract. António Ramírez, Patrick Rosales, and Tokugawa Yamashita. All those 3 are relief pitchers, kind of core central pieces of the bullpen. Ramirez made $5 million, Rosales made $2.4 million, Yamashita made $500K, which is quite interesting. And then well, we'll get to 35 years in a little bit. All 3 of them have essentially kind of 3 years, except their team options. You'll notice this about Allen's opt-outs, is they often are followed shortly with team options, which kind of give a little bit more risk reduction to that opt-out thing. António Ramírez is the lucky guy. I know he made $5 million. He can opt into $8 million for 2 years, so $16 million, and then there are 2 $9 million team options after that. Ramirez, let me remind myself, again, solid relief pitcher, solid fastball, slider, changeup, 7.75 kind of potentials. Don't think he's been injured much. No, hasn't had any real problems in 2 years. You know, I think at age 34, where is he? Age 34, if he opts in, he's going to opt into $16 million. He'd be 36 at the end of that with the 2 team options. It's kind of a toss-up. I kind of doubt that he's going to get more than $16 million, given he's a solid reliever. I just don't see him getting more than $16 million over even 3 years. So I would say probably he should opt in and stay. Rosales at 34 is making $2.4 million. He can opt into 1 year for 4.4, and then after that he's got 2 team options at 6.4. Those 2 team options are vaporware. They're not gonna exist. His agent should definitely not pretend that those are real, despite the fact that he posted a solid 2.37 ERA, was 11-3. Those are nice numbers, but career oddities, right? He's always been a 40 inning a year pitcher. Well, 40 for the past, since he's been at Twin Cities, he's been a 40 to 60, 38 to 60 inning pitcher. His ERA plus has been pretty good. His FIPS have been all over the board. Just don't know exactly what to make of his performances. I still just don't see him making the $6.4 million in 2 years. The more interesting question is, can he get more than $4.4 million guaranteed? He probably can't get $4.4 million for this coming year. Maybe, because it was such a 11-3 with that 2 blank ERA is an interesting number. But I'm going to guess that he can get more going forward. If you agree with me and to wipe out those $6.4 million team options, I'm going to guess he really ought to opt out and take the chance on making more than $4.4 million guaranteed. If I were his agent, that's where I think I would be. That took a lot out of me. Next up is our last 34-year-old, and that's Yamashita. Would you opt into $800K for next year with 2 $1.4 million team options after that? His ratings don't look nearly as good as his performance, which leads me to think Allen has been doing some fun things with him. He only got 34 innings last year. What did he start the year before? He had 147 innings. Yeah, he started 25 games the year before. Maybe he'd get more. I mean, he can't really get the ultimate question there at $800K. If you're opting into $800K, you're saying, I'm not sure I can get a contract anywhere. And I'm not sure about that. I think he could make more in the GBC, if nothing else. I haven't actually looked at GBC ratings, but his 6.74 ratings are not great, but not horrible. He's a lefty. You'd think he could latch on someplace at 34. You know, I don't know what his overall financial status is. If I were his mentor, I might be saying you should opt out, just because you ought to be able to do more than $800K, and the $1.4 million team options again are probably not not meaningful. Okay, so those are all the 34-year-olds. We have 3 more players. 2 of them, again, are Twin Cities. And in this case, the next player is Ricardo De Jesús, first baseman, 35-year-old first baseman. He has a similar situation as Yamashita, in that he gets to opt into 1 year, a $3 million a year, with 2 $5.4 million team options that are, again, Twin City vaporware. Those aren't going to happen. De Jesus is a established veteran, 35 years old. Can he still run? Yeah, I know he used to. Yeah, he can still run like mad. He stole 50 bases last year. To show the value of 50 stolen bases, that's still 1 more for the season with 429 at-bats. He's a productive, useful hitter. He gets on base, he walks a lot. His OBP was, what, 358 last year? He's done better if his contact stays high-ish, whatever high is, it's a 6 right now. If it stays high with that eye, he should always be valuable. Defensively, he's nothing anymore. I don't think he was a lot even in his peak. A first baseman who can not hit home runs but run like mad is an interesting and weird player. Switch hitter, true switch hitter, looks like, which is always nice, helpful. At the end of the day, the question as a agent is, can he make more than $3 million guaranteed? I don't know. This is really a toss-up to me. I think I would tell him it depends on whether he wants to play in the GBC, maybe, I don't know. I think I would tell him to opt out, because I think he would make more than $3 million and guarantee himself a place in baseball for 2062. And even if he didn't make more than $3 million, he'd probably guarantee himself a place in baseball for 2 years, which I assume that's what he wants to do. Otherwise, he'd retire. But really, I don't know that there's a bad option here. Stay and take $3 million right now and hope that you can latch on next year, or go and see if you can extend a little bit. I think you can get a contract, so I don't think there's a bad choice. The next and final Twin City candidate is Bernie Stuart, which is a fascinating case. Bernie Stuart, at age 36, made $7 million this year. He can opt into a $9 million contract next year. Then after that, he's got the classic Twin Cities 13.6 million team options. I'm going to guess, again, those 13.6 are not going to happen. Never say never with a super solid pitcher like Bernie Stuart. At age 36, he's still got the mojo, right? The 777 ratings are nice. They're not blazing, but they're quite good. I could see him making $10 and $12 million a year as a starting pitcher if he can hold those. He went 16-8 last year. ERA was not brilliant. 4.41, 179 innings. What was his 3.5 WAR? He did 5 WAR last year, 4.5. So maybe he's down a little bit. It's kind of hard to say. His ERA was not as, like I said, was a league average ERA this year, whereas his FIP was 3.84, which is good, not blazingly great, but good. I don't know, it kind of depends. I guess it depends on how much he likes Twin Cities and what he thinks Twin Cities is going to do. Are they going to win next year or not, with some of the changes coming on? I would be tempted, if I were his agent, at $9 million for 1 year. I don't think that 13.6 is going to be something that will really fit for Twin Cities, although yeah, I'd be tempted to tell him to opt out, with the idea that I think I can get more than $9 million guaranteed for him going forward. And at age 36, you just never know when the injury bug could, or the development bug, whatever, could drop you off. So I think you try to get your money now while you can, and off you go. Oh, okay, I see. That's actually the end of the... No, I guess I will count. There is one more. He's 34. He should have been up in the 34 ranges, but I sorted him differently because his opt-out is closer to what you would call a player option. I'm going to do another one of these on player options, because there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 opt-outs that are really just player options at the end of the contract. I don't know why the OTP does that. So I will cover those 6 as options if I have a lunch with Ron or something. But the last player is Portland's Slawomir Trzcinski. I'm from the Midwest America. Trzcinski. I apologize to to people of Polish nationality who I cannot speak. Their use of consonants and vowels together don't fit my tongue very well. Regardless, Slawomir is a 6.67 relief pitcher, through 95 really solid innings last year with Portland, 1.71 ERA, through 1.9 WAR. Just a really good left-handed relief pitcher, and he can opt into $4 million a year for the next 2 years. No options after that or whatever. At age 34, that would mean he'd come out of free agency at age 36. I like Portland's ability to win going forward. I assume that that's important to him. He's had a nice career. He's probably got money. He could probably make just a little bit more going forward, and this may be his last real option, because when he comes out of free agency at age 36, he may not have the same mojo. Raw dollars and cents, I'd say opt out with the heart. And I mean, that $4 million a year isn't anything to sneeze at for a solid relief pitcher. That's a good price for him. You know, I think that's the thing where he goes back to his significant other and his family and says, do we like it here in Portland? And if so, you stay, and otherwise you go ahead and go and see if you can grab the money. So anyway, those are the opt-outs that we have around the league. A vast majority of them, like I said, I think if I were their agent, I would be telling them to go out and try to get some more money. There's only a couple that I think they should opt into. But we shall see. That's one of the things I love this piece of the off-season, because you get to see how OOTP and the players within actually look at their overall situation. So anyway, this has been Breakfast with Ron, play agent of the stars with Ron as he eats breakfast. Like I said, if I get some time, I'll do one with lunch and or dinner, and maybe talk about just straight player options, and then maybe I'll do one with breakfast tomorrow and do team options. We'll see how much time that I have and so forth. Anyway, have a great day. Thanks for having breakfast with me.